Xenoblade Chronicles X is a masterpiece.
What are you so afraid of?
About our bodies.
What? That's him?
You die!
Commander?
Finally stop living this goddamn lie.
No.
Don't speak to me of myths.
Enemy are planning to attack and away from us.
We have no choice here.
I'd rather laugh my way to the grave. He's gone?
There was no other
How
choice.
does that free anyone? We are gonna have so much fun together.
What did you say?
Just...
You're inside the wall?
Xenoblade Chronicles X is the second kinda installment in the Xenoblade series, but at a completely different timeline from the main Xenoblade Chronicles timeline. Like I said, kind of set up in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, or at least at the time. It's not a run-of-the-mill JRPG. It deviated from the formula by mixing a bit of MMO-like mechanics in it and relying more on online components and less on story components, but I'll touch on the story parts a bit later. It's a game that largely gets forgotten for a major reason. It was released on the Wii U, late in its life cycle. This means that probably a lot of people have not and will not play it. That's why I'm here to convince you to buy it and play it. Yes, that includes a Wii U. Now some people could say, but hey, 12-piece, why not just wait until a remake for the Switch comes out? And yeah, that's fair, but the chances of that happening are pretty small. Let's go over why. Xenoblade Chronicles X is big. Like, really big. Mira has been said to be the size of Japan, or 377,944 square kilometers big, by the game's director. But this shouldn't be a big problem, right? Wrong. As director Tatsuya Takahashi said to Game Informer in 2018, the game has to be built up from the ground in order to remaster it. Now, this kind of brings this game in a weird place. They could either make a sequel that probably everyone who played it wants, but no one else really, or spend the resources of the equivalent of a whole new game on a remake. This means, yes, cutting some parts of the game development cycle, but it's mostly the least costly part of development that gets cut. You still have the most expensive and amount of work left. But hey, let's see if I'm wrong about this in 2 to 3 years, and I really hope I am. But now after trying to convince you to buy an old system, let me convince you to buy a new old game. This game is fucking stacked in terms of gameplay, as most JRPGs are. There are tons of systems, numbers, resistances, buffs, debuffs, and there's a big chance you won't understand them, and to be honest, you don't really need to. I didn't even know what the fuck potential was until after I finished the main story. You'll probably only understand how Overdrive actually works 300 hours in, but still, it's nice to have them. After you understand the game, it's more fun to experiment with them and try different things. So, let's run down some of the systems. Let's begin with the thing you'll be doing a lot, the combat. Okay, this changes quite a bit depending on classes and arts and other stuff, but I'll cover those in a bit. I'll just cover the basic bits right here. These over here are your allies. These are important. Keep them alive. You can do that by keeping their HP bar, the bar over here, above 0. Easy stuff, right? Okay, then this is the TP of you and your allies. See this a bit like mana. Some arts need TP. No, TP arts are really powerful. What are arts? Well, buddy, it's these things right here. These are actions you can do during combat. Oh, so it's turn-based? Nope. During the combat, you are free to move and basic attack automatically. You can switch between weapons with X, so you can have a ranged and melee weapon. Or if you're like me, you just use a full melee build and use a gun for TP generation. Oh yeah, you generate TP while basic attacking. Where were we again? Oh yeah, arts. Okay, these can get a bit complicated. Some have certain requirements for extra damage or a debuff, like use this skill from the side to topple, or does more damage to toppled enemies. Some skills can be AoE, but there are different types. Watch out so you don't shoot the level 50 mech that insta-kills you. But don't worry, cause Elmo will probably do it anyway with her fucking sliding stinger, piece of shit. This in the middle, don't worry about it. I won't explain it, cause I still don't fucking understand it, cause it's complicated and I can't be bothered with combos and things like tactics. I just like hitting things till it dies. Classes. Okay, you have different classes. This is pretty simple. You have basic bitch, that gets divided into 3 subclasses: Longswordy Boy, the anime character, and Enforcer. I didn't write that. Oh shit, what's the last one? Beamy Boys. Let's call them Beam. Okay. Let's call them Beamy Boys. You have Basic Bitch that gets divided in 3 subclasses: Longswordy Boy, the anime character, and Beamy Boys. These focus in balance, fast positional damage, and debuffs and support, respectively. These then further branch out in more specialized classes. You can move on to the next class when your current class reaches level 10. You level it up by killing things, quite easy. But this is an important thing that dumb little me didn't realize back in 2015. When you max out a class branch, you can change your class and still use the skills, arts, and gear from the other class you maxed. This can make for some fun combos, like Ghostwalker Photon Saber or Raygun Longsword builds. But the important part is, it gives you options. Is the cat fucking wrecking your shit sniper build? Fuck him up with this patented longsword slicey build that's available in your local menu. But those classes all mostly use different weapons, so let's go to the weapons and their stats. Weapons have quite a bit of stats, like reload time or cooldown. Kinda speaks for itself, but then you also have things like their attributes and augments, saying mechanoid crit up. This may seem overwhelming at first, but it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. Pick the best stats in the weapon select menu. You can see if they're better or worse when selecting them. Attributes don't play that much of a role in your fighting power, as long as you have both of your weapons being a different type, because enemies can be resistant to certain attributes, and you don't want to be caught to a beam resistant enemy with only beam weapons. Augments are also a thing on your weapons. These are, as their name implies, augments to your weapon and armor. These can range from okay to broken. They can prolong overdrive, make you deal more damage to certain types of enemies, or make you debuff resistant. Augments are a complex system with a lot of possibilities and can make you borderline broken as well. Also, do else mission over here. You will thank me later. You also have armor. Armor is a funny thing really, because as far as I can tell, defense is one of the least important things of the armor. The most important part is these things right here. These are the resistances you have: physical, beam, thermal, electrical, ether, and gravity. The most important thing is to have this balanced, or if you are about to fight a mob that uses primarily a certain attribute for attacks, like the prone using beams, build against that. Gravity for a large part will be in the negative for you, so get used to it. Another fun fact is, if you press X, you can select fashion gear. This means you can be powerful as fuck but still look cool. Use this, please. Also, all party members have their gear named after them. If you're like me and want characters to look like they are in the story, you can equip that. Talking about party members, your party. You have quite a bit of characters to make your party, but the base 2 characters, Lynn and Elma, do the job well enough. And thank God, because you're forced to use them in a lot of the story and affinity missions. So that means you still have a slot free for another member. Remember, your character Cross always has to be in the party, so you can use only 3 other squad members. You have Best Boy, Angry Lady, that one racist dude, the cool guy, Dog, and a whole lot more. Also, another fun fact, I didn't know this, you can play as other characters than Cross. I learned this from this guy's video. It's better, go watch it after this one. He knows what he's doing, I don't. The only requirement for Cross is that he is in the party. But if you put him in the second slot, and you put Dog in the first one, you can play as him. Now you can finally live out your fantasy of being Elma. Now that you know of your party and gear, you should know how to buy it. Well, that's simple really. You just buy it in the shop. But to put more things in the shop, you have to use the AM terminal. And this is where I'm gonna go a bit on tangents, so be prepared. You have this thing called Frontier Nav. Use it and optimize it, I beg you. You're gonna thank me later for it. Look for these minerals, put research probes on sightseeing spots you found, and wait a bit. You'll get minerals, money, and this thing called Minerium. You can use this to place extra augment slots on your weapons, make augments, make gear, and the most important part, fund arms manufacturers. Somehow. First thing, before anything else, level Sakuraba to max level first. You'll see why. Second, do these missions and talk to these guys when you can. Level 5 is the max level. Not all AMs take the same amount to level up. Okay, goodbye. They don't know. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to go over to this next topic. So talking about Segways Scales, probably one of the funnest and coolest feature in Xeno X. These are just giant fucking mechs. These have a few differences to normal boring human mode. For one really nice attention to detail is the fact that indigents react differently to your presence depending if you're in your skull or not, like Grexis. These are aggressive when you're a mere human, but turn neutral or passive depending on what you define as neutral when you are in your skull. Even though this is a small detail, it makes the world feel more alive and real. Like yeah, aggressive dog would attack a human, but it would know its fucking place when you're against a giant ass mech. No dogs were harmed in the making of this video. Also, I don't hate dogs, so don't hate me, please, I beg you. You also trample small enemies. That's also why the skull version of Black Tar is called What Did I Step On Now? Besides these small details, there are also big changes like arts. Instead of equipping weapons and arts separately of each other, you pick the arts by picking the weapons. Want big damage? Take big sword. Want CC? Take small bolting on shoulder. Want to fuck some shit up? Take this fucking railgun and shoot the living hell out of this piece of shit baby suit that's blocking your path, just to hear the beginning 5 notes of Black Tar, so you can have a bigger gun. Before we talk about the music though, I have to admit that I am extremely biased. I have been a fan of Hiroyuki Sawano for almost as long as I remember watching anime, which is almost half of my life at this point. You can see my fanboying by looking at my top 3 anime when 2 of them have OSTs of him. So if you hear some shit takes, it's because I'm a fanboy, so like call me out on this shit please, thank you. So first and foremost, this OST has been composed by Hiroyuki Sawano. You might know him from Attack on Titan, Gundam, Recreators, Kill la Kill, a whole lot more. And it's controversial to say the least. A lot of people seem to really hate this OST. This is mostly concentrated on 2 songs, that being this title, or better known as the NLA teams, and Black Tar, the main battle team. There are 2 main reasons for that I can think of, at least, that can be the cause of this. The first one is a pretty major one: repetition. You hear these songs a lot. You spend a lot of time in the administrative district, like a lot, buying gear, depositing Minarium, looking for missions, other things. And most of the time you won't hear the complete song because you're jumping around so much. So most of the time you only hear the first few bars. It's the same situation with the battle team. Wow, who could have guessed? You hear the battle team a lot. But you have the same situation with the fact that you get so powerful that only the first few bars ever play. Here it's even worse because this song gets better as it goes on. The best parts are the ones you'll probably never hear, because you'll either be dead or the enemy you're trying to kill will be dead already. The second reason, uniqueness. I will call it uniqueness, to be honest. This is one that surprises me the most. A lot of people seem to hate the music because it's weird. While yes, it makes unique choices for game OSTs at least, this is very much in Sawano's style. That doesn't necessarily make it bad. Let's compare it to the unreleased only other Xenoblade game, Xenoblade Chronicles. This game has beautiful, gorgeous music. I won't take any of that away, but it doesn't really have a unique feel to it. It feels like I can place the OST in any other JRPG and it would work fine. It follows the norm and it does it beautifully. But as someone who listens more to OSTs than actual music, it's pretty bland. The kind of music you forget after a while, after finishing the game, besides a few tracks. And then you have Xenoblade Chronicles X, where, to be honest, it's so unique, it feels out of place in its own game. But in a good way. I mean, fuck, a lot of people fucking meme, I need a bigger gun, or I can't hear you, I can see you. Because of how dumb the English lyrics are. But this also makes it memorable. But I know unique doesn't equal good, so let's talk about some of my favorite songs. Let's begin with Melancholia. This fucking song is amazing. It's used for a small menu you barely spend time on. This one was one of Sawano's older works though he used for this. But still, they used this here, and in some cutscenes, apparently, I don't remember that to be honest. Also, I don't know anything about musical theory, but I fucking know the layers, pun intended, in this song are fucking bonkers. You also have songs like 4, 6, dash RI9 Part 2, or otherwise known as the Sylvalum Night Team. Also, yeah, a lot of Sonos titles look like that. Get used to it. This song is the reason that I always ask for people to go to Sylvalum for the first time during the night. Walking through those gates for the first time and seeing Sylvalum in its glory at night with this music makes it perfect. The music and the unique environment here play into each other, both having a mysterious feel. This together makes this my favorite environment ever in any game. I genuinely remember playing this for the first time and just sitting there in awe of the sheer beauty of this combination, standing still and just experiencing it. Now, lastly, my favorite song from like any OST ever is this one. It's called Uncontrollable. This is Xenox's Tyrant theme, and no other song can make you feel more like a god or make you panic as much as this song. Just hearing those 4 notes instantly activates your fight or flight instincts, cause that can be just a small bronze tyrant that's maybe like level 20, or it's a 80s something headless giant that has killed thousands already. Killing a tyrant while this song is playing feels like the biggest dopamine rush ever, especially if you have died before to that tyrant, or if the fight is pretty closely matched and you have to fight with your life and especially Skell on the line. These are also some more honorable mentions. I will also talk about some other songs later. And probably also a big part why the music is hated is the audio mixing press. Hey! Hey! Can you turn it down a little? Thanks. Anyway, like I was saying, a really big problem in this game is the audio mixing or mastering. I don't know the difference. It's so problematic to the point that playing it without subtitles makes the dialogue sometimes illegible. I hope if we ever do get a remaster, the audio gets remastered. But enough bad joke. That's so bad. Oh, why do I write this? Fucking hate this. But enough. But enough bad jokes. Let's talk about the story. The thing you can't hear because of the bangers in the background. And the thing a lot of people complain about without actually having played all of it. This part contains spoilers. Skip to this time right here to not hear these. I will also talk about some of the other things I already talked about, but then because of spoilers, so you have been warned. Now, I can already imagine people being angry like, oh, but I did play the story. I played all 12 chapters and it was only 70 hours long. Literally unplayable. And these people kind of miss the whole point about the game. If you finished it, you know that this game isn't about you, Alma, or your Mims, but about Mira, the planet, and the people and creatures living on it. While yes, the main story is short, the main story isn't the only one. There are so many heart-to-hearts, normal missions, and affinity missions. These are and should be considered part of the story, because like I said, this is about Mira and the people on it, as well as the story of finding the life holds. And if you count all this, then the story is stacked. There are a lot of story missions. But let's talk about one thing the story does really well, and that is setup and rewards. There are a lot of hints to Elma being what she is. Also even name drops of the Ares before it even applies to anything in the story. Now this is cool because playing it again makes this like, hey, I know what you mean here. This is fun for a second playthrough, but an utter and complete pain when you got spoiled because a piece of shit made Elmas reveal his thumbnail for his chapter 12 playthrough. I will never fucking forgive you, whoever you are. Sometimes it can be a bit on the nose though. On a first playthrough you might not notice, but a lot of the affinity missions that you need to complete to further the story relate to Lao. Now if you're here, you also know why, so let's talk about Lao first. Lao in my mind remains the strongest character in the story. He reacts as you would expect. he lost his child and wife due to not getting on the white whale. It wouldn't be that far-fetched that he went into a dark spiral, resulting in him colluding with the Ganglion. But after the confrontation with the Prog Ares, seeing Lynn and Cross still not wanting to kill him, made him reevaluate and choosing humans after all. But just as he makes the right choices again, he gets turned into a rampaging monster that has to be killed to protect humanity, who he holds dear again. Lau also gets some of the best music in the game. His three main teams are So Now So Fern, the Prog Ares battle team, and the Key We've Lost. All three have a lot of emotional weight to them. So Now So Fern, a song of a broken man yearning for his loved ones back. The Prog Ares' team, a battle song to a battle neither of you want to fight. And the Key We've Lost, the song to the final boss, a man who has finally regained his humanity reduced to a chimera of monster-like traits. Is also a really interesting character, with a lot of hints dropping everywhere. Even the beginning of the game with her introduction, because she calls Earth your planet and not our planet, because she's not a human. Also, a lot of the higher-ups, like Vandam and Nagi, talk to her like she's their senior, even though she is a soldier, so she should be their junior. But again, that's because she warned them of the war and gave humanity a lot of technology. She also reveals quite a lot of questions about humanity, like, does you not having a human body make it so you're not human anymore? Or is it your consciousness that makes it human? Lin and Tatsu, okay, people will definitely not like this, but it's not that bad. While Tatsu is definitely the worst thing in Xeno X, it's not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. A lot of people hate the Tatsu food jokes, and yes, they're terrible, they're utter and complete dog shit. But I think that's mostly a problem with execution. They obviously wanted to make these jokes like banter between two good friends, even though the Infinity Mission doesn't really support this claim I'm making right here. Look at the storming of the Lightfall, they obviously are friends. Why would Tatsu be in here? If not, he should be running the fuck away if he believes it. But besides the bad jokes, their relationship is pretty endearing, since they're both the same age, but with completely different mindsets. Tatsu being more of a child and Lin being more of an adult. This gives a pretty fun contrast and also allows Lin to be more childlike around Tatsu sometimes. But definitely Tatsu is the worst character. Look at the Tainted chapter as an example. One gripe I have with Lin is her voice acting. It's not bad, it's pretty good actually, but I feel that in some scenes she doesn't feel as emotional as she should be. Let's compare the scene before Lau's fight between the JP and EN version. But this and like two other places are the only times I felt the voice acting was lacking a bit though. Overall it's really good, especially Big Boy Luxor. I love his voice actor, it's amazing. Also, can we like acknowledge that this trailer has like a fuck ton of spoilers, like a concerning amount? Okay, then I'll talk about the most hype but also saddest part of the game, the ending. I'm not talking about this ending, I'm talking about this one. This basically makes this game incomplete by default. Like I said before, this game is good at setup and rewards, but in these situations the rewards for a lot of the setup is more setup. This leaves open a lot of questions and possibilities. And do I believe they could pull it off and make this amazing? Yes. But the problem is that we need a sequel for this, because as long as there isn't one, this story isn't done. This looks like an amazing setup, but the wait has been 7 years, so I doubt the reward will come. I hope for it, but it probably won't. And if they do, there's a chance it will release at the end of the life cycle of their respective console again, driving down the sales and ruining the chance for other people to know how the story goes. I will keep hope, but I doubt it will ever come. This marks the end of the spoiler section. For the people returning, hi, welcome back. Let's talk about Mira. Mira is the planet Xenoblade Chronicles X takes place on after we crash landed on it. This world is lived in, it feels real and alive. Indigents sleep, interact with each other, predators have different attack patterns like ambush predators or just big TT boy Dubaidi. The world is divided in 5 continents or regions depending on what your definition is. Geology and all that shit. Each having their own climate. You have Primordia, the plains, Noctilum, the jungle, Oblivia, the desert, Sylvalum, the dandelion fields, and Oblivia, the ancient ruins. These are really basic descriptions of the regions, and definitely don't do them justice. Primoria works great as an introductory region, open spaces, clear direction, but it also has thought of the later game, making things unexplorable in the early game so you can still find new things later in the game. Noctilum is also a really cool take on the jungle concept, basically merging the jungle feel with coral reef aesthetics, making for some really cool and interesting environments. It also has a few regions that themselves stray bit away from the rest and being a tiny pocket biome. Oblivia is a desert that not only feels alive and vibrant, but also has hints of ancient dead civilizations and floating islands. Here, more and more history of Mira comes into play with temples, tube-like structures, giant metal rings. Sylvalum, this is definitely my favorite environment ever in the history of gaming, like I said. The use of white, green and purple, having a soft, beautiful feel, and amazing lighting with bioluminescence everywhere. Auroras and crystal fields. But this is contrasted with the danger looming of old ancient machines brought back to functioning by the ganglion. Coldros? If I say it wrong, just correct me, please. Coldros is the most missed potential environment in the game. This is the city of a once great civilization ridden with lava and old mechanical cityscapes, castles, big plants, I guess. This is also one of the most dangerous regions of the game, being the base of the ganglion, ridden with these things. Okay, I can't say their names, so just read them, okay? They're just big fuck off mechs. For all these regions, you also have a collectopedia, which you fill with items you find along the way of your travels. This is filled with background lore and world building tidbits. Now, you probably won't care about all this stuff, but for a nerd like me, this is like a fun afternoon to read this. But just in general, the world building in this game is fucking amazing. Like I've said multiple times already, this world feels alive. This has multiple reasons like I listed before, but a big one is also the characters. Because, now this may sound weird, they are racist. But in a lot of games where humans come in contact with alien races, it's treated like a big thing, yes, but rarely will people act like real people in those situations. You're telling me humans, the species that can't even get along for 3 minutes, is just gonna act all buddy-buddy instantly with a xeno race? Like a completely different species? No, of course not. But that's not all. They all go about it differently. Some try to antagonize and kill them, some believe what the previous group tells them, even if they are blatantly wrong because they're afraid. And a group that just thinks of them as lesser beings, even though they are obviously way more advanced than we mere humans. I'm not really qualified to talk about stuff like racism, so I won't really go deeper into it. I don't know enough about it to make concrete statements about it, but I know for a fact that similar things would happen in real life if this would happen. The world gets built upon a lot by heart-to-hearts. These advance characters a lot, but also the world a bit in some cases. You also just have normal missions like killing stuff, collecting stuff, like normal JRPGs, but it's done pretty well. Instead of people having to have people randomly start talking to them, they put up their request on a mission board, like how it would work in real life, because people wouldn't come up to you like, hey, I need 6 of these weird bugs I found? And if they do that, run away. They just run away. Affinity missions also build up a lot of the world, be it establishing relationships between characters, changing character dynamics, or just hanging out with the boys. All this tells us a little about the world and the people in an organic way. In essence, this game has obvious flaws, be it the tutorial, audio mixing, or some gameplay aspects like scale repairing, but all those pale to the good stuff like the OST, how beautiful it is even though it runs on the dogshit system called the Wii U, the sci-fi concepts. A lot of JRPG fans get thrown off by how different it is compared to most other JRPGs. And to be honest, I don't blame them. Compare it to the original Xenoblade, where there was a mix of fantasy and sci-fi as well, but just leaning more to the fantasy. Here the reverse happens. It's a sci-fi story with very tiny bits of fantasy thrown in it. It's my favorite game, and for quality I would even put it up to the same standard as Nier Automata. It's a game that's more of an experience than a game. You begin to care about the world and the people in it, to the point that quitting the game feels hard because you want to explore more. And I hope someday we do get to explore more. On Mira, a planet far away from here, but still close to my heart.
Frustrated.